Guys, today we're going to be talking about returning foundries. Just the other day, we made a video recapping the most important moments from the Player vs. Enemies podcast that dropped earlier this week. If you haven't listened to it, we've got a link to that full episode in the description below, as well as our breakdown of what Chris Proctor and Vivian Bex had to say, who by the way are members of the Weapons Sandbox team over at Bungie. Essentially though, they jumped into changes coming in Lightfall, the future weapons in the game, new perks, and a host of other things. Tons of great information was revealed in this podcast, but today we're going to be addressing one of the finer details. Specifically, some lines from Chris Proctor regarding the release of reprised Foundry weapons in future seasons. Now, new Foundry traits. Chris Proctor was discussing Foundry perks and then proceeded to talk about the benefits that we would like to see Foundry traits give. Chris Proctor stated, quote, "In the next few seasons, we're going to see a couple of new Foundry traits come out, so speculate wildly if you want to." Now, this is actually a big info drop. I know we have Origin traits, but this is different. This is Foundry traits. Now, the question comes up, what does Foundry perks and traits actually mean? Now, again, this is not referring to normal Origin traits on seasonal weapons. We already know we're going to be getting a new Origin trait on the Deepstone Crypt weapons when those are revamped next season. And at this point, I think it's safe to expect the usual slew of seasonal weapons will always have a new Origin trait tied to them. Proctor specifically refers to Origin traits on Foundry weapons. And we've already seen some of these traits already in weapons like Suros weapons, Amlon, Vice, and even Hockey weapons. So the question then is, what weapon foundries do we not have Origin traits for? Well, we actually got quite a few. Black Armory weapons. Yes, that's right. Kind of some standout ones here. We talked about a while back how much we would love to see Black Armory weapons back. Can you imagine them coming back with Origin traits tied to their foundries? Cassoid. A lot of people don't know Cassoid. It's already present in the game, but the most popular Cassoid weapon was of course Invective from Destiny 1. We also have Dido, Mida, Nadir, Tex Mechanica, and the Infinite Forge weapons. Now this is up to debate on whether this is actually a foundry, but let's be real, there were some pretty good weapons over there, which by the way got sunset. Now all of these foundries don't have an Origin trait, and only a few of them actually have legendary weapons in the game. Black Armory has a ton of weapons that the community fell in love with. Mida also has a few. And the reason why I would say the Infinite Forge can be considered a foundry, if you don't remember, that was the location on Mercury where we acquired all the Curse of Osiris weapons. And again, if you want to check out the full history of foundries, feel free to check out a video we did earlier this year covering every single one of them. Now, there was a line from that TWAB that was mentioned in that video that I believe at this point we misinterpreted. Quote, "We know we haven't brought back all of your favorite foundry weapon types, but don't worry. You can expect to see weapon foundries receive new additions each season for the year following the Witch Queen, with some fun surprises thrown in later in the year." Initially, we thought this meant we were getting new foundry weapons, but in hindsight, we didn't get an addition to Black Armory or Dido or Nadir. What we did get were more weapons for foundries that were already in the game: Suros, Hockey, Amlon, and Vice. Now though, we have actual confirmations that we'll be getting new Origin traits, which means new legendary foundry weapons. Or just give us Black Armory weapons, Bungie. We can assume this is what they meant when they said some fun surprises. And what's even more interesting is that they said later in the year. Guys, Lightfall is next year. We only have one season left before 2023. So when Chris Proctor says we'll see weapon traits in the next few seasons, he's including season 19, which is just barely a month away. But this isn't the only thing Chris Proctor said that was intriguing. A few minutes later, when discussing reprising of weapons, Chris Proctor said, "You'll notice we do occasionally bring sets of weapons back, but it's when there is an important story beat centered around a specific character or whatever." Now, the moment there is a Black Armory story beat or an Ada 1 story beat, you can expect Black Armory weapons to come back. Or if there's really a strong Sate beat or Rasputin beat, you can expect those associated weapons come back. Yes, Ikelos weapons are also on the table. Granted, we might be dreaming here. Are we really going to see Saint 14 weapons back again? Am I actually going to be able to use Breach Light now that we're finally in a sidearm meta? Now, the only thing that's keeping us from our beloved weapons that were sunset is the story. Once the story shifts and focuses on characters related to these weapons, then that's when we're actually going to see the return of those weapons. In the case of Saint 14, that would be a Season the Dawn weapons. And for Rasputin again, that would be the Braid Tech weapons we lost, Ikelos, Seven Seraph weapons, etc. Now, we actually think that next season may be focused on Rasputin. We have a speculation video regarding the future of the story later this season, but that would actually mean those Season the Worthy weapons, at the very least, would be receiving Origin traits, in addition to whatever Foundry traits that we're getting. Remember, seasonal weapons are not Foundry weapons. So unless Bungie creates a new Foundry, which is totally possible come Lightfall, then expect seasonal weapons alongside these Foundry weapons, unless it's Season the Forge 2.0. Then they may be the same. The point is, we're definitely getting new or reprised legendary weapons from multiple, and all are old seasonal weapons that were sunsets. These are all on the table for being added back into the game. Now, this is a big deal for my new light players that have no idea what the hell we're talking about. Guys, this is a list of major sunset weapons, both Foundry and seasonal, that were amazing. Starting with Black Armory. You had Tatara Gaze, Tempered Dynamo, Threat Level, No Feelings. Look, No Feelings was the only scout rifle at the time that could roll with box breathing. It was a big deal. I know we we have Hung Jury now, but it was a big deal back in the day. Kindle Orchid, one of the best hand cannons ever. So good, I still have mine, even though it's sunset. My beautiful Rampage kill clip roll. I've kept it all this time. Blast Furnace, the original powerhouse of aggressives. The Ringing Knell. Oh, if there's one thing to be said about all of these, maximum sex appeal. You also have Bellowing Giant, Hammerhead, Spiteful Fang, and Striker Surehand. Now, there are also other Black Armory variants of other weapons, including Show of Force, Gilliard. Man, this was the meta back in the 600 round per minute auto rifle meta. Swift Ride, Bad News, Tango, Balligant, Atalanta D, Dead Man Walking, Who's Go, and Acantha D. Now, all of these definitely represent something in our hearts. I think many of us look back on Black Armory very fondly. I don't think we're gonna get every one of these back, but hopefully, the more popular ones come back. Now, Season of Dawn. Season of Dawn had some fantastic weapons. You had Steel Feather Repeater, which was one of the most stable 720s ever. Patron of Lost Causes, one of the best 200 round per minute scout rifles. I loved it. Perfect Paradox, literally same 14 shotgun. Breachlight. Breachlight would absolutely wreck in this sandbox. Gallant Charge and Martyr's Retribution, aka Marty, aka the original Waveframe. Now, Infinite Forge weapons, this kind of dips off because a lot of these weapons, well, they were kind of hit or miss. Some of them weren't really updated. Think like Jack Queen King. It had came back to us with random rolls. But again, remember at one time, this was a 150 and it didn't really get its stats updated. So if it was to come back, it needs to be a little better. But there were some definite other good weapons, things like West of Sunfall, Infinite Pass, No Calamity, Future Save, So Pariah, Traveler's Judgment, which would be phenomenal in the sidearm meta, Machine Adele, the Conqueror, Guard and Progeny, all weapons that can definitely benefit from an origin trait of some sort or a foundry trait. Now, Braytech weapons. Braytech, we kind of already have this in some way. Like we have the Braytech auto rifle already with Season the Loss. But if you remember, guys, we had some gems way back when. You remember the Frigid Jackal? This sniper rifle right here? I know it was a static roll. I don't care though. There's a reason why it has a 5-star rating on Light GG. Phenomenal sniper rifle. And what's so crazy about it was that it had a 49 zoom and people still used it, which tells you how good it is. 18 Kelvins, Niflheim Frost, and Braytech Osprey. And last but not least, Season of the Undying. These weapons really didn't get to shine much, but you had Subjunctive, Imperative, Adorative, which I would love to see back, and Optative, which was actually one of the better feeling 180s ever made. There are lots of options here, and we're not even diving into some of the other weapons that we would love to see. Things like the Ikelos weapons with some sort of foundry trait. But this does lead to speculation of what a foundry trait would be like for some of these weapons. Take, for instance, Cassoid. And I know we're talking about this weapon a bunch, but Telesto, Ariana's Vow, Dead Messenger, all three exotics part of Cassoid. This may surprise you, but we have a number of legendaries tied to Cassoid as well, including a bunch of fusion rifles from Main Ingredient to Wizen Rebuke, even a rocket launcher that's also Cassoid. So imagine a foundry perk amplifying Main Ingredients. Sounds a little nasty? All I'm saying is this is giving more and more value to these weapons, and more specifically these foundries. I know I kind of baked in a little bit of what I want to see. Black Armory weapons brought back to us would be amazing, but any type of expansion on these foundries, I think there's just so much lore involved in every single one of them, and there's so much to be said about the type of weapons they make. Tex Mechanica, for instance, has so much character. Every single one of their weapons are Western themed, from Chaperone to the Prospector to Huckleberry, Last Word, Dead Man's Tale, and even when you look at Wastelander, this too is a Tex Mechanica weapon. It makes you wonder, what would a foundry trait on Wastelander look like? At the same time, what about for the rest of us that have already grinded for the weapon pattern in this damn thing? Cross, are you saying I'm gonna have to grind for it again? Hopefully not. Point is, I'm excited to see what exactly fleshed out foundry traits are gonna look like. Guys, let me know in the comments below what you think. Which foundry would you love to see variations of weapons next season? What would you love to see back? And I'm also curious what identity you associate with each one of these foundries and seasonal weapons. Let me know in the comments below. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.